Hey, I'm gonna try to go over this video using common sense. I'm gonna try to keep it short to around like 25 minutes. Uh, I'm just gonna go right into it.
Indigenous, all my indigenous relatives on Turtle Island. Basically, when you deal with indigenous culture, everybody on this planet is a descendant of a tribe. Whether you know it or not, you descend from a tribe. Now,
There's over 100,000 different tribes in the world. People don't recognize themselves as tribes. People recognize themselves as nations. There's a clan in China called the Fuyang clan. If you were to come and ask a Chinese person, what is your nationality? They wouldn't tell you their clan a day in their life. They would always tell you Chinese. Not one time, not twice, not maybe, not 99% of the time, always. It always will be Chinese because people deal in nations.
all these tribes have their history. A lot of us have been written out of history, and it's called paper genocide.
I want to touch on the written out of history part. This is the Admiralty in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, page 68 in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. It says, established in the principal maritime cities on the revival of commerce after the fall of the Western Empire. It say after the fall of the Western Empire. When did a Western Empire fall? Did that make sense to you? When was there a Western Empire? Have you ever heard of a Western Empire? I thought we were in the Western Empire. But I guess one fell. Oh, I guess they wrote that one out of the history. Kind of the one he's not going to be speaking on, but he's going to be talking about that empire and talking about what that empire had and what that empire did without mentioning that there was a Western Empire because he want to make it look like a tribe. So it's kind of like me talking. It's kind of like somebody talking about China and he's speaking all about China and what China did and all of these things. But they keep on trying to make it seem like it's Fuyang and it's a Fuyang and it's a bunch of tribes. It was China. It was a nation of people. But let's keep on going.
Laws were passed starting in 1700s, 1800s, but the final law that was passed was called the Racial Integrity Act, which was passed in 1924. This act changed it took your nationality away from you and reduced you to a racial category.
They didn't have a nationality. What he's talking about is it taking the Cherokee thing from and reducing them back to that. But Cherokee isn't a nationality. He just called it a tribe. Now he's calling it a nationality. These two words obviously have two different definitions. They obviously don't mean the same thing. Everyone in the world know that tribe and nation do not mean the same thing in a regular dictionary. Everyone knows that. They obviously did not take Cherokee from you and give you Negro, and then that was because Cherokee was your nationality. That obviously did not happen. Cherokee wasn't even your nationality. That was a tribe.
So that would be Negro, colored, things of that nature. So a lot of us, when you look back on your the census reports, you're gonna find that a lot of your ancestors were documented as being colored. Now, when you understand that the original term for colored represented anyone who was indigenous and what they would say Native American and black, right?
That's not the original term of color. The original term of color means fake in the Black's Law Dictionary. I do know what term he's talking about. So it is a term that represents, or they would speak to indigenous, or they would say means indigenous people. And this was the application, also in the Black's Law Dictionary that you can say. I forgot the name of it though. But that is not the original term of color, because color leads to no land. It's no land of colored. And how about colored? Think about colored. How can that lead to indigenous people? Color. Really? That leads to indigenous people? Color. It means fake. That's the original application. It means artificial in a law dictionary. But there's another term that has color in it, and they use it as that, but they use it as a way to disinherit people, to take away their nationality. The original term was not the original people. It means artificial.
Right? But the point is, black is not a nationality. So when they deal with when they say black, they hide in the net.
Cherokee is not a nationality. That's also a hiding nationality. If somebody go around and call themselves Fuyang, I would also tell them you're not stating your nationality. Your nationality is Chinese, not Fuyang. Cherokee is also hiding nationality.
A nationality. Now, a lot of people don't understand, or they don't realize that the actual slave trade started in the Americas and took people to Europe. Right? So a lot of what we call slaves or people who came here during the first arrival of slaves to the Americas, a lot of these people were indigenous people who were initially taken from here and brought back, right? My family happened to be one of those. We have our history, we have our records, we have everything. European, in order to like the first colony established in New Jersey is called Middletown. Middletown sits on the Navesink River. The Navesink is the name of my tribe. Nuwasik, it means those closest to the river, right? So a lot of the history that we have, you can really easily deal with who you truly were when you start decoding the history of the towns and the cities and the boroughs you grew up in. Your family was raised in. My family in particular, we from New Jersey. We're documented as one of the oldest 3 families that was on record as being here when the Europeans established their first colony, which was Middletown, which
one of the older 3 families that was documented as being here. This is the Washita Empire. Empire, Washita, Doug Demon Dyer. They are registered as the oldest indigenous people on Earth, Washita, meaning that they stayed in one place the longest on Earth. That is what the United Nations recognize them as. They stayed in one place the longest on Earth to be indigenous that way. Yes, and this is right here, the Washita Empire. 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 And his family is over here. It's in New Jersey and coming up over here. Yes, this is all Washita though, the empire. And I want to Washita Dugdamaya Moors. They are Moors, as you can see them with the fez on. As you can see them with the fez on. As you can see them with the fez on. They are Moors. Moors. And they're recognized as the oldest indigenous people on the planet. Let's keep going.
This is on the northern bank of the Navesink River. The southern bank of the Navesink River is a town called Red Bank. That's where I'm from, right? A lot of these places that we know of as cities, right? I'll give you an example, New Orleans. New Orleans is a French military outpost, right? Where I'm from, Red Bank, Manhattan, places like this were indigenous cities. And when
they were not indigenous cities, they was a part of a Western empire that fell.
The Europeans came here, they just overlaid everything that we were already doing.
When I say not a part of indigenous cities, I mean tribal cities, of what he's really trying to say. He's not trying to say indigenous, because there's cities in China that's indigenous, but they're also Chinese at the same time being indigenous. He's trying to say tribal cities.
Fulton Street was already here. We was already doing trade on these places. Europeans came here and they just overlaid the roads. I can show them proof of this because my great-great-grandfather was one of the individuals responsible for paving all the indigenous pathways. These indigenous paths are what you call 13, I-95, the Garden State Parkway, so on and so forth, right? That was here already. There's 5...
I know it was here because it's an empire.
A lot of y'all are familiar with the Silk Road in Europe. There were 5 Silk Roads here.
Because it's an empire.
On this side, coming from the north, the northwest, the south, the southwest, and west completely, right? These 5 roads, these 5 trading routes all coalesced, or they all met up at a place called the Navesink River. From the Navesink River, you would float your goods up to what we call Manhattan. Manhattan was a place of trade. That's why it...
Because it's an empire. That's where only an empire will have a place to trade like that everyone from around the world comes to, because it's an empire.
It was deemed the World Trade. That's why the World Trade Center was built here, because Manhattan is always in a place where the nations came to trade.
Yes, nations came to trade. Did he just say nations came to trade? I thought the tribes were the nations. So do he mean tribes came to trade? Because I'm pretty sure no tribes were coming from other places to come trade here. I'm pretty sure they were nations. I'm pretty sure. I'm 100% sure they were nations, not tribes.
Nations as far as Europe?
Yes, and I'm pretty sure he said nations as far as Europe. Europe's a continent, but yes, Europe, nations in Europe. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was nations. I'm pretty sure it wasn't tribes that was coming from Europe to come trade.
South America, North America, Canada. I'll give you an example, right? They tell you about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was native routes, native trade routes, a part of these 5 Silk Roads that was on this side, all right? The Underground Railroad, the final destination was a place called Nova Scotia, right? When you understand where Nova Scotia is, you understand that Nova Scotia means New Scotland, right? When you deal with Scotland, right, An example for a lot of y'all, because you like to watch movies, The Last King of Scotland dealt with the Uganda. The Ugandans, right, who established what we call Kemet.
If you want to watch it straight through, put in the title and watch it. He about to go into it's like a little. It's not really the topic of what I'm trying to be discussing. I'm not trying to talk about Uganda and Egypt right now. So I'm gonna go over a little bit real quick.
Scott means dark. So when we talk about Anne Scott, who was the mother of King James, Scott is not a name, it's a title. See, a lot of the things we don't understand is that what we think of as surnames are just descriptive titles, meaning Europeans,
He
when
just
they
said the name of the
name things
tribe
or
was a
they
descriptive
designated
title, did he
things.
not? Did he not say? Wait, let's go listen to that again.
Scott is not a name, it's a title.
Not
See,
a
a lot
name,
of the
it's a
things we
title.
don't understand is that what we think of as surnames are just descriptive titles, meaning
Just descriptive titles.
town sits on the Navasink River. The Navasink is the name of my tribe. Nuwasik, it means those closest to the river.
Is that not descriptive? How can you get more descriptive? Anybody can be close to a river. Those closest to the river. Anybody can be close to a river. How is that not? Isn't that descriptive? I don't. Oh, but okay. That's not descriptive, and that's not a name. That's obviously a name. That's not descriptive. Those closest to the river are obviously alluding to people. But okay, that's like Moroccan. That's like what you're gonna be saying. But okay. Those close to the river. I got you.
Scotia. Now, Nova Scotia means new dark lands. Kemet is what? The dark lands, right? Scott is not a name, it's a title. See, a lot of the things we don't understand is that what we think of as surnames are just descriptive titles, meaning Europeans, when they name things or they designated things, it was either descriptive, locational, right, or functional. So you have names like Miller, right? Because those families worked at mills. You have names like Taylor, because those families made clothing. You have people who are known as fishers, because when they encountered these people, they encountered them on the waters, and they were
Also, to anybody with names, they will have Ellen Bay. We always had Ellen Bay, El Bay, Ali Day, Al obviously, all five, but we use Ellen Bay now. But they will have Ellen Bay to connect them back to the empire also. So it would be Rogers Bay of the clan of Cherokee or whatever else of Cherokee tribe, Roger Bay of Cherokee tribe. The Bay would be the empire to show you Moorish empire of the. You obviously get how it's set up. But then when we lost when the empire was falling, and some of us wanted to trade and wanted to go into the tribe with them, we dropped the Bay. Then it'll be Rogers, and then they will, instead of be Cherokee tribe, they will say Rogers of the Cherokee nation, and then they'll sign a bunch of treaties that Europeans wasn't going to recognize it. But you kind of get what I'm saying.
were fishing. So they call the people fishers. You have families named Rivers. Why? Because when they encountered these families, when they came here, they named them according to their location place, right? So you have family names like Hill, right? Family names like my family, which is Rock, right? When you start to deal with the real understanding of languages, you understand that a lot of the people who, what we assume are surnames, are really descriptive terms given to the people, right? So I could go deeper in it and start breaking it down.
Just like his tribe is a descriptive term given to the people.
From the language of my people, which we call our language Lenape, because the language is synonymous with the people, right? But when
we spoke 5 languages minimum. Anybody that spoke less than 5 languages was a dummy. We use languages for different things. Like Latin, we use for law. Arabic, we use, let's say, poetry or something else. We spoke the minimum 5 languages, minimum. There was no language for no actual people. We spoke everything. It wasn't no language. You speak China because you're Chinese, and no, you speak China, you speak Latin, you speak Arabic, you speak English, and you can add another 5 languages onto that. It was
steal your language and they steal your identity. What happens is you start to revert and you start to use different names, identities for yourself. One of the first names that we reverted to, right? And I can.
You show me one indigenous people on this earth that kept the same language for the last 80,000 years. You know how many times a nation reorganized?
I'm speaking for those of us in Lenape-Hoking, which is all.
No, Jolly spoke English. He spoke English. A prophet that spoke English. You have meaning you can reach levels without. You don't have to. You can speak. It's a language. Different languages tap into different things, but that's going to another discussion. But I'm just saying.
All of New Jersey, the 5 boroughs, Eastern Pennsylvania, and Northern Delaware.
Even though English isn't their language, just adding. But
all right. So all the people within that territory who lost their tribal identity started to refer to themselves as Moors.
Yeah. That's a lie.
Because Moor is a general title that references seafaring indigenous nations.
You said Moor is a general title. Okay, let's go. Okay. Mulatto. This is Bailey's 1721 dictionary. Bailey's 1721 dictionary. Just in case I'd help you out. Just in case you don't. You have a better way of Bailey's 1721 dictionary, the publication. First published in 1721. Let's go down to mulatto. Mulatto. One born of parents of whom one is a Moor and the other of another nation. One born of parents of whom one is a Moor and the other of another nation makes you a mulatto. Which means that the only way you could be fully pure human is if your parents are two Moors. If you mix with someone who's not a Moor, that will make you a mulatto. Oh, but do that add up with anything having to do with seafaring nations? That don't even make sense, do it? Seafaring nation, one born of parents of whom one is a seafarer and the other of another nation. Obviously, that makes no sense, and they're not using it in that context. And this is 1721, and they're not using it in that context. Obviously, more refers to, as it always said, dark-skinned people. Whether you were a seafarer or not, I'm pretty sure they're not referring to Zulus as being a mulatto if you mix with a Zulu if they didn't travel the seas and they weren't traveling seas at the time. I'm pretty sure. One born of parents of whom one is a Moor and the other of another nation. Okay. Which will make Moor mean exactly what it always say. It will refer to the original people, which is the dark-skinned people. The reason why I say dark-skinned people is because they are the original people. So obviously it will refer to dark-skinned people because they are the originals.
Right? It doesn't mean Morocco. Somebody from Morocco is not a Moor, he's a
Morocco was the kingdom on West Africa, but there was a Moorish empire, which can also be called a Moroccan empire. That's why the prophet said we are Moroccans. We are Moroccans born in America, but we're descended from Moroccans. We are Moors born in America, but we're descended from Moroccans. Because it was an empire. It wasn't a country. You see, what people got to get is sometimes people get caught up in. Let's go look at North Africa real quick. But I want you to think about this real quick. Look at these nations that you see over here: Western Sahara, Morocco, Algeria, Libya. These was all a part. What do they say? What do they say when they sing from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli? That's the Moroccan Empire. This is why I say you got to think. Dungdamaya Empire. Dungdamaya Empire was Moors. Dungdamaya Empire was Moors. They were Moors. They were Moors. They were Moors. Dungdamaya Empire was Moors. Now I'm gonna show you that the Sultan, letter from George Washington to Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Sultan of Morocco. I'm gonna come straight down here. As you see, George Washington. This is city of New York. George Washington writing this in the city of New York from George Washington to George Washington. Okay, now let's hurry up and go here. The encouragement which your majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions. Wait, dominions mean land. He just called this Moroccan land. He just called this land Morocco. He just called this land Morocco. But that would make sense if the Washita are Moors too. The Washita are Moors, and he called the land Morocco, which would make us Moors, which would also make us Moroccans, because the land is Morocco, but we're also Moors at the same time. But what do we have to be with us being Moors? Because we have a Western Empire. But the land of the Western Empire was Morocco. It's not really that hard if you just let's go back down. The encouragement which your majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce, with your land, basically is what he's saying, with your dominions, the punctuality with which you have caused the treaty with us to be observed, and just and generous measures taken in case of Captain Proctor, make a deep impression on the United States. Make a deep impression on the United States and confirm their respect for and attachment to your Imperial Majesty. He just said the United States is attached to the Moroccan lands. Your Imperial Majesty is obviously Morocco. Is obviously Morocco. And he said dominions, which is Moroccan land. So he's basically saying that this is Morocco. This is Morocco. And how would this be Morocco? This would be Morocco because you see all of that land? Yes, that is ran by Moors. You see that? And United States is where? On the colonies right here. He just watched. What did George Washington say? George Washington said that these are Moroccan dominions, which means that this is also Moor land. So if this land is ruled by Moors, he said he's from New Jersey, which will automatically make him a Moor because his land is either he's a Moor or his land isn't his and he's a foreigner. It'd have to be one or the other because this is Moroccan land. This is Moroccan land. You go down to Mexico, you have people like this. Otomies. The Otomi warriors. The Otomis was a warrior people. The Otomis in Mexico. The Otomis. That sounds a lot like Ottoman. Moroccan. That sounds a lot like Moroccan. The is one of the several Native American tribes. That sounds a lot like Moroccan. I mean, it sounds a lot like it. I mean, it's obviously not the same, but it's a lot of sound a lot like it. United States is here, and George Washington said Moroccan domain. So I mean, all of this. Where's he at? New Jersey. This is a part of the United States, which will make this Moroccan dominions. Okay. Let's.
Jersey, the 5 boroughs, eastern Pennsylvania, and northern Delaware. All right? So all the people within that territory who lost their tribal identity started to refer to themselves as Moors.
Okay,
because
so
Moor is a general type.
He said all those people that lost their tribal identity started referring to themselves as Moors. So I said all the people, like saying all the Fuyang started referring to themselves as Chinese. I mean, it makes sense. But look at here. Look at here. This is so. When did the Washita start referring to themselves as Moors? Because they own all of this land, which is so big. This is double the size of the United States. It's double. So okay. So please tell me when did Washita start calling themselves Moors? When was they wearing fezzes like that? As you see the guy right here with the fez on, which is with the Empress. You see the guy right here with the fez on. The Louisiana Purchase. They were selling Washita territory. But obviously, it wasn't theirs to sell. They were selling territory that wasn't theirs. And see his Fez and Washita, Dungamaya Moors. So when did they start calling themselves Moors? Okay, let's just look at this with common sense. If they're calling themselves Moors, if this is all their land, and you have this little baby, witty, pitty, little bit of land, obviously you didn't just start calling yourself Moors yesterday. And while George Washington in 1789 is saying that this is Moroccan land. Obviously, it'd have to do with the Washita, with them being Moors and the Moroccans being Moors, and Moor being the general title. But the Moors having an empire, that's why they say, especially in African Negro when they refer to it. But
title that references seafaring indigenous nations.
we already proved that wrong by Washita. We already proved that wrong.
Right? It doesn't mean Morocco. Somebody from Morocco is not a Moor, he's a Moroccan.
We obviously proved that wrong by being that the Sultan said the land over there is Moroccan dominions. But then who is over there? Moors. How can the Sultan give Moroccan dominions if it's Moors? So it's
somebody from Mauritania is not a Moor, he's a Mauritanian.
Somebody from Mauritania is not a Moor. Okay, let's look at this real quick. Mulatto. Okay. Let's go to Moor. Moor, first definition, same dictionary, 1721 Bailey's Dictionary. A native of Mauritania in Africa, a black Moor, a native of Mauritania. And it's funny because they have Mauritania, the exact one that he said. What is a native of Mauritania? That would mean that they're Moor, right? But what is a native of Mauritania? Ain't that a Mauritania? That's like saying a native of China. That's a Chinese person, obviously. But okay, okay. But they're not Moors. But it say Moor and it say Mauritania, but they're not Moors. Okay, they're not Moors. That's what I'm talking about. Basic research. People wouldn't say these names.
If that concept was valid, then if Moor is short for Morocco, then the concept of a Moor would be what we call ourselves because we come from America, right? So for somebody to start talking like Moor is not a nationality, right? Moor come out of a function. It come out of
Moor is an empire. It was a Moorish empire. Nobody redesignated it because our empire fell as Moorish American. Ish meaning pertaining to what? Moroccan dominions. The same Moroccan dominions that set up George Washington. That is what he's referring to. The same Moroccan dominions that set up George Washington. Why is a Sultan owning land over in North America and he's not spoke about? And why did the Sultan give land to George Washington? And how was he able to do that? The Sultan didn't own no land in North America because it was a Western empire. That's why. Because it's a Western empire. Where's the definition? The fall of the Western Empire. This is all before the fall. So you know what the Western Empire was called? The Moorish Empire. It was called the Moorish Empire. And do you know what North America was referred to as? Morocco. It's not, but the whole empire could be referred to as the Moroccan Empire. It wasn't more Morocco with together. It goes together. He just said more in Morocco, but the Sultan gave George Washington the dominions to set up camp. He gave him dominions. But how can he give him dominions of territory over here if he don't? Obviously, it's an empire that's with us and our cousins, and and it's an empire. It's Washita Moors. It just that's why I say come over here. This is why I said about the empire. Like you look at Morocco. Let's go to Morocco flag. Let's go there. You see the star. Okay. Let's go to Algeria. You see the star and the crescent. Okay. See another star though. You see that, right? All right. Libya. Let's go to Libya. Star and the crescent. And then you look at the Ottomans in Mexico. Is it not easy to get at, basically kind of get at what I'm saying as I'm going over all of this? It's
out of an action. Mooring is steering. In order to
mooring is steering. Moor, a native of Mauritania, is obviously not steering.
A moor ship, you're guiding a ship, right?
Let's talk about nomenclature. Things apply to different things. So if you talk about the seas, then you talk, when you say moor, talk about the seas steering. There's also a moor fish. What are you talking about? That's like me saying moor is a fish. That's like me saying moor is a fish. No, if you talk about fishes and you say moor is a fish. The fish, the more fish, the black and more fish is not, no, but moor is not fish, because that moor also doesn't mean staring. When you're talking about the seas, it means staring. When you talk about people, it means the fact that you even got to go over this is insane.
Moor, who was the person when Columbus sailed here? Who guided his ship? Pedro the Moor. Moor is a function.
What? Because he's a Moor.
Just like Taylor is a function, just like Smith is a function. But the Europeans.
Your tribe is a function. Your tribe is those that live close to the river. Is that not a function?
When they encountered the original Moors, right, they were all melanated people. So through association, Moor became dark.
Moor is not only melanated people. You have many different looking Moors, as you see with the Libyan Moors. Oh, we talked the ones that they encountered. Yes, they would have been most of them. There was amalgamated Moors by that time, even in Spain, from the mixing with. What are you talking about? Pedro the Moor. He tutored Ferdinand and Isabella's daughter. No, their son. It's not. They seen Moors all the time, and Pedro wasn't a dark-skinned Moor. What are you talking about? They've been seeing Moors with lighter skin.
But it's not what it means. Connotatively, it means navigator.
He said connotatively it means navigator. And connotative is a fake definition. He basically just said the fake definition is navigator. That's like saying nice. It just it just because literally like saying nice means connotatively nice means good. Therefore, nice means good. No, nice means foolish. That's the really denotation. It's and then he even mentioned connotation to say it's not what it means, even though connotatively it doesn't mean that. I don't more any person. I'm pretty much done with it though, but
That's what it means. But you're gonna deal with people.
I wasn't able to use real good common sense today because I'm very, very sleepy. But I'm about to go to sleep and it's nighttime. But
Going to tell you more means this and more means that, and I'm telling you they are not educated on the concept. Now
they're not educated on the concept, but he is more. He just said more. A person from Mauritania is not a Moor, and it means a native of Mauritania Moor. Come on, if obviously you don't know what you're talking about. Obviously,
break it down.
Mauritania, Mauritania is more is in Mauritania.